Monte Carlo simulation. Setup. Session prerequisites. Browse through our earlier material on simulation, generic variables. In preparation, please have the spreadsheet open on your computer and follow along. Maximum benefit guaranteed. Learning objectives. Profile risks on a project using the risk exposure metric.
My friend spoke about a Monte Carlo simulation the other day. Is it a gambling game?
No, it isn't. It's a technique that experts use to model problems with inherent uncertainty. It's grown popular because computing, such as this, has become much more accessible these days.
Yes, they're handing out laptops in Indian schools.
Technology is wonderful. Shall we get back to Monte Carlo?
How is it different from our other simulations?
So far, we have focused on simulating random numbers so they follow a known distribution such as binomial or Poisson. What we will do in this segment is to apply the idea of simulations to problems that have multiple inputs and one or more outcomes. The inputs may be subject to uncertainty, but once they are supplied, the outcomes are certain. Take for example our dartboard. Before I throw these darts at the board, there is some uncertainty. The darts could land anywhere on this board. Let's have a simple scoring scheme. Now once these darts are on the board, my score is decided. There is no uncertainty, right? Now suppose you wanted to rate me as a dartboard player. How would you do that?
Easy peasy. Throw your darts again and again.
And record the scores on each round, perhaps on a spreadsheet, right?
If you're nice, I'll take the median of your scores.
Or perhaps my mean score along with a standard deviation to measure how reliable I am. That's the essence of a Monte Carlo simulation, to repeat an experiment again and again in virtual space.
I get it. How about a real business application?
You know, I worked in the software industry. Project managers there have to juggle a ton of risks. If you're a good project manager, we call them PMs, you will be constantly monitoring and mitigating these risks.
What would you call a risk?
Here's a simple definition. A risk is anything that can have an adverse effect on the project's outcome or a beneficial effect.
Hey, there's even a positive side to risk.
They call it an opportunity, but technically it's classified as a risk. Any risk that materializes becomes an issue. The PM must act on this on a priority basis.
You've lost me. Give me a real example.
Sure, poor internet connectivity can pose a huge risk to software projects. So IT firms in India have redundant internet providers to handle this sort of a risk. Even then, there are no guarantees.
Oh God, I can smell probability.
Certainly, Lisa, and you know how to work with probabilities. Top-notch companies keep a close track of risks across all of their projects. Whenever a risk gets identified on a project, the PM can look up historical records and figure out how likely it is to become a full-blown issue.
No PM I know does that. Someone's got to keep records.
And much more. There are different kinds of risks, as you can guess. On a software project, these risks tend to go with the stage of the project, whether it's in planning, development, or maintenance. For now, let's just say that the project team has drawn up a grand list of risks and their likelihoods of materializing. Here they are on a spreadsheet for a hypothetical project. The impact on schedule is in calendar months and the impact on cost is in thousands of dollars. So for example, our first risk comes during the requirement stage or planning. The risk condition is that key stakeholders are absent with a probability of 15%. If this risk becomes a full-blown issue, meaning that risk actually occurs, then the impact on the schedule will be a full 4 calendar months and will have $100,000 of impact on the total cost of the project. I hope you got that.
So, if a risk becomes an issue, We know what it costs.
In time as well as in money, leave alone the reputation. Projects usually have a lot of risks, so a project manager will need some way to prioritize them, right? What she can do is to use a metric called risk exposure. It's simply the cost times the probability of that risk. One rule of thumb is that a risk with a higher exposure must be prioritized over one with lower risk exposure or RE.